And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Teacher versus Trans. Interesting story about a Pennsylvania teacher who refused to use pronouns of a student. Puff, puff, pardon. People are going to be excused for minor marijuana possession, according to President Biden. And then the real 1%. I told you this mathematical number. It's kind of stunning about America's wealth. Do you want to give a hint to who the real 1% may be?
No.
All of that on today's Midday Show. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm tired.
Are you?
Yes.
We'll leave that up. Let's liven you up a little bit. There's a story coming out. You can find it on Penn Live of a Pennsylvania teacher. He was reinstated after refusing to use transgender students' preferred pronouns. Here are the basics before I let you dive in. This was in Beaver County. They had suspended the teacher for refusing to recognize the students' pronouns, but was reinstated during a school board meeting. He is a biology and anatomy teacher, suspended last week, not using the pronouns of a student that they had requested. He is using the reason citing religious beliefs. More than 400 people attended the school board meeting for Southside Area School District for his reinstatement. There are a bunch of quotes about what people at the meeting actually said. I'll leave the floor open to you. Initial thoughts, because I think there's a couple of different paths we can probably go down with this.
Yes. My first thought is I understand why. This is a veteran teacher of 30 years. So he's probably, relatively my age. I'm 50. And I get why the whole pronoun thing is challenging, because we've spoken this way for 50 years. And just to, it is a challenge. I don't get the religious connection to it. I don't get that. Someone quoted like as a good Christian. Maybe that was like his wife or somebody that was telling to come support him, but he's a good Christian. And what I don't, and maybe this is what I don't understand. Maybe my Christianity is different. Like Christianity is supposed to be like love thy neighbor. And if the person is asking, like if you came in tomorrow and said, call me Muhammad, what do I care? Like then I think being a good person is like doing it. So I don't understand why a person making a request, as challenging as it is for us, because I struggle with the they them pronouns as well, because pronouns just flow off our tongue. I understand why it's a challenge, a linguistic challenge, but I don't understand why someone asking you to do something and everyone else kind of goes along with it and you tell them to go pound sand makes you a good Christian. I don't understand how that is. Someone else cited the Bible of where there was, I don't know what part of the Bible they cited, which is, that's always a very slippery slope, because in the Bible, it also talks about slavery and polygamy.
The book's also very old.
Right. So, I mean, we pick and choose what parts of the Bible we really, really bang on, and then what parts of the Bible we're like, we just don't do polygamy anymore. So I just, that part, I just don't get. I do understand with this. I guess he was suspended without a school board meeting. So there's always procedural. I don't want to say red tape. That makes it sound. There are steps. There's a more intelligent word than steps, but there are procedural steps you have to go through to do some of these, and apparently they violated it. But it's the whole thing is interesting, and I don't know what side I'm on in general. I just don't see how it just seems to me like I'm not going to do it, and I'm throwing out the religion card. I find it hard to believe, like if Jesus was here, he'd be like, "Oh hell no, I'm not doing it."
So here, this is a really interesting conversation for me to talk about, because as I've said on the show before, I am agnostic. So a religious affiliation for me is very confounding. It's not something that it's not something that drives my everyday decision making like other people it may. So, and then on the other side of it, you also have, you and I have had conversations before about pronoun use and like what is acceptable, how should it be implemented into society, what is like an expectation for somebody that is not transgender and doesn't necessarily have pronouns, for someone who doesn't care what their pronoun is. I honestly don't care what my pronoun is. Like, to me, it's an absurd thing that I would care what my pronoun is, right? Like just the word itself. So for me, this is a very weird discussion because basically what I'm doing is I'm talking about somebody who got reinstated using something that I don't think is real to combat something that I don't necessarily think other people should have to use. Like, it's a very weird conversation for me. It's like these two things coming at each other's heads, and I don't really know.
Okay, let me do this. Let's dumb it down.
Okay.
Do you think a student comes in and says, I would like they, them pronouns.
Okay.
You're a teacher of 30 years.
Okay.
You say, I'm not doing it. Do you think the teacher should be suspended?
It's a phenomenal question. Do I think the teacher should be suspended? I don't know their process. Did they try to air it out? Was there a meeting between the student and the teacher with administration? You know what I'm saying? Like, what were the phases that led to a suspension, right? It's a fascinating thing because as a teacher, I don't know how often you use, like, you raise their hand, mark. Like,
that's what I was thinking.
Like, I don't know how often you're actually using the student's pronoun. So I could go both ways with that. I could say, as a student, it may never actually come up in the classroom. Does it need to be announced? As a teacher, I could say, like, it's never going to happen. Like, why? So I see both. I see both ends of it.
That was one of my other things. Because if you're the teacher, and again, the kindness and compassion and love that Christianity is supposed to show, even if you disagree with this person does, couldn't you just say, okay, and just call the person by their name and never, like, I always call you Jeff, and I never say,
right. This is Jeff's project.
Right. I could always refer to you in the first person.
Like, if you set the religious part aside, because there's probably a whole other conversation there about, like, is this a scapegoat or is this what he really... And
it seems scapegoatish. I can't see how it's not.
I'm not him. I don't know. So, but just to set it aside for a second, the interesting part about this is most people in teaching, and you and I tend to agree on this, most did it because, like, they wanted to be a positive influence. Right. They wanted to help kids. So the scapegoatness of it, excuse me, if there is an inkling of him being like, I just can't do this, I don't really know the answer for that. And I think that's why I'm setting it aside for a second.
You mean can't do it, like, mentally, or no, wait,
if it's just
can't do it on principle, or can't do it because
his belief? I don't know. But see, I think that's why for me this is such a confounding topic, because again, for me, both sides are trying to implement something that I don't necessarily implement within my own life.
No,
do you know what? So, like, because I'm agnostic, and because, like, I have no, like, you and I, when we did the Leah Thomas thing, like, I have no issue with Leah Thomas. The only time I would ever have an issue with Leah Thomas is if she tried to implement something onto me. And so, like, this is one of those instances where, like, someone's trying to use religion, someone's trying to use pronouns, and I'm just kind of like, I don't even know if I don't know who I would even begin to agree with, because I can't necessarily relate to either of you right now.
Okay, I'll give you that. Like, I don't think the teacher should be suspended.
Okay.
But I don't think the teacher's being very compassionate.
I think if you're asking me who was probably whose foot is deeper into the ground, I would argue the teachers, without having been there, without knowing all the details. The story that I read, I would argue the teacher is probably the one who has his heels dug in more so than the student. Right. That would be I agree. That would be my PC answer to the question.
So the teacher's back. They had a school board meeting, a lot of people show up, and
it's certainly a 2022.
It's a modern problem.
This is, yes, without a doubt.
But yes, we also have to have with all these aspects of society, there's a part that is, as we talk all the time about cancel culture, there's a part that, do you just turn the dial or does somebody get canceled? Is this person, should he be fired? Is this fireable, or is this just you're a jerk? And for future scheduling purposes, if possible, I don't know how big the school is, but whoever's making the class schedule knows I'm not putting this kid in this guy's class because he won't cooperate. I don't know. It is interesting.
The only thing I would say about that is that does seem like a short-term solution. Like, given where we're heading and where society is going, I mean, are you just doing this for every kid in the LGBTQ community? Like, are they just no longer going to be in this guy's class? I don't.
Well,
there's
kids in the LGBTQ community that still use him, her.
Yeah. I mean, it comes back to teaching has an oath, but it's like they don't really, it's not like a doctor's oath.
It's not Hippocratic?
No, it's not like a doctor's oath where to me, the doctor's oath is like a real, like doctors, like I've heard doctors refer to it. You know what I mean? Like kind of like, well, we have this oath and we're supposed to help it. I think there's like an understanding that like teachers have that, but it's not as like pungent as like a doctor's oath or some, other.
It's more of a suggestion than an oath.
Maybe. And so that is, to me, that might be a more fascinating conversation for me, is like how, like as a teacher, like as a doctor, regardless of ethnicity, religion, faith, all that stuff, like when someone's on the table, like your oath is to fulfill and help this person to the best of your capability. Is that included for teachers? Like, regardless of your gender, your ethnicity, whatever it is, are you trying? And so that would be interesting. Now that I've thought about it in that capacity, I don't love what the teacher did as much. Not that I loved what he did, but like,
right.
That certainly is an X against him. But again, like I said, teachers I don't think there is like that necessarily, that mindset. But part of it is because I think most teachers get into it wanting
because they want to help.
Right.
Well, I also think that it's there's obviously majority and minority in this. This is a trans student, right? Isn't that what we read?
Yes.
So this kid, you would certainly wish that the kid got support because this kid is obviously unique in the school. As far as like the masses, he or she, whatever, does not, or they, I guess it would be, does not have the the pack, It does not, the strength of numbers. So, and then for the teacher to make an example, you would just wish that the people, it's like the line in A Few Good Men when the guy says we were supposed to help the guys who can't, we're supposed to fight for the guys who can't fight for themselves. We're supposed to fight for Willie. You would wish the teachers would kind of, I don't want to say fight for this kid because the kid is in the vast minority. And instead now, because there are kids in school who will now rally to the teacher and like, yeah, I'm glad you said something because I think the kid's weird. And it's just made it worse.
I would also be curious how many, like most schools have religious affiliated clubs. Like they, what I mean? Like there are different clubs that meet outside of the school and they'll pray or they'll do different events and things like that. So I'm sure like him saying that it's a religious choice for him, I would imagine it's the same thing the other way too, right? Like there's going to be students coming and saying like, as X, I thank you for saying something.
Yeah.
So it's just very, very tricky. I'm not really sure. Again, this is like a right field thing for me where like I'm fascinated viewing it, but it's also, I feel weird almost talking about it because I'm neither. I'm not.
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
not,
get it.
I'm not
I get it.
religious, and
I get it.
so it's I don't know.
That's
Very,
why I
very
dumbed it
interesting
down for you.
conversation. No, you did
Because
I appreciate
you were. This is like you watching a show about like mythical dragons and things like that. It's
most complicated show on television. Thank you to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor of the Midday Show. I don't know if you saw this or not. They have added a free turkey to their rewards program. So there's a Thanksgiving rewards program. You can shop, earn, and redeem. And if you earn enough points, you can get a free turkey for Thanksgiving. Check out Weis Markets online. It's weismarkets.com for a chance to see if you can earn a free turkey.
Do they cook it for you?
I don't know. I doubt it, right? They probably just give you the turkey and then it's yours to take home.
Can you cook a turkey?
Can I cook a turkey?
Have you ever cooked a turkey?
You have to try in order to know if you can do something or not. And I have never tried.
You've never tried? Okay.
So it's a very good question.
Are you a stuffing inside the turkey guy? Or are you like a regular stovetop?
I think stuffing's a little overrated. I think it's not like, let me put it to you this way. It's nice we do it once a year. I think if you did anything beyond that, like if you did stuffing once a week, it'd be like, why? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? It would wear on you.
Okay.
It would wear on you throughout the year if it was like a peas or corn or mashed potatoes style thing.
Okay.
That's just an opinion.
All right.
Biden has pardoned thousands of Americans for simple possession of marijuana.
Puff pardon is very cute, by the way. I like that.
Puff pardon. I appreciate that. Under federal law, his administration took a dramatic step toward decriminalizing the drug and addressing charging practices, that disproportionately impact different people of the country. I will say this, especially after our conversation yesterday, because sometimes I think people think you and I are like legitimately fighting.
Well, I was going to say, what conversation yesterday?
Exactly. You've already forgotten about it. We talked about Herschel Walker, and then we talked about like what Republicans think.
Yeah, I've told people that. Like, I don't think we've ever been mad at each other. We just disagree.
No, we're just talking about it. I said to you when I first saw this is like very, very happy with it, very excited. I think what happens is a lot of times behind the scenes, people don't always get to see the positive things that you say about Republicans or the negative things you say about Democrats and vice versa. The negative things that I say about Republicans or the positive things that I say about Democrats. I think this makes a ton of sense. It's probably well overdue. This is one of the things that I am most happy with what President Biden has done since he's been in office.
Well, one of the things, because I know we had a story here, I don't know how long ago it ran, but because it is marijuana is being legalized in so many places, this is one of the arguments of states' rights. Mm-hmm. And there are people like, if you are, I know there's medical marijuana laws, there's recreational marijuana laws, there's all this. If you drive from here to Florida, mm-hmm. How many people drive from here to Florida and know what the marijuana laws are in every state?
Sure.
And there was a story here about these people who are not from Pennsylvania, who were in the state, who got picked up, and they're like, it's legal where we're from. And they're like, well, it's not legal here. Mm-hmm. And that is a very, I don't know. You get into a whole argument about states' rights, but you get those aspects like you can smoke Marlboros in New York State, but you can't smoke Marlboros in Pennsylvania, and that's mm-hmm. Now you get into some ridiculousness. So, I'm with it, and I don't know the details of it, but when you've people who are sitting in jail in one state for doing something that is perfectly legal the next state over doesn't make any sense in America nowadays.
No, and that's why, again, like under federal law, it makes a ton of sense. Also, too, you're going to have a lot of states already are. I mean, there's states that are making bank off of this from the tax money, just the economy in itself. So even just the idea that like you have government officials, you have government programs, you have different states literally financially benefiting from the same thing that an individual is locked away for. It just does, like, to me, that part makes no sense.
So you're saying from the economic level, not only can we save money by getting him out of prison, but we can make more money because he can then become a customer again.
I mean, that's possible, yes. I mean, that will more than likely happen. But what I'm saying is I'm against anything where the hierarchy benefits, but then you get tossed for the same thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Oh, I thought you were going to say where the hierarchy smokes it too, and then they just don't get in trouble.
They do. But if the state of Colorado can collect tax dollars off of this and help benefit their state,
Right.
the idea that someone else is sitting locked away for it, I agree. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me at all. So shout out again. Hasn't been my favorite president, but shout out to Joe Biden. I appreciate it. I think it's a good idea.
It is interesting because
By the way, I should also state, never smoked before in my life.
Yeah,
so
me
this
neither.
is not like stoner Jeff like being like, that's right.
Did you ever smoke a cigarette?
No, I've never smoked. I've never had a cigar.
What'd you say?
I've never had a cigar.
Neither have I.
No.
I had a cigarette in my mouth once for Halloween because I went dressed as Slash from Guns N' Roses, and he pretty much, I think he smokes in his sleep.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever seen a picture of him without a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it. And I had to borrow one from someone I worked with because I was like, hey, I need a cigarette for my costume.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's it. I've never smoked either.
Nice. Good story.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Well, I'm getting people ready for Halloween with Slash.
No, I was.
Oh, speaking of people who smoke all the time. Oh, thank you to Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships.
Not that Blaze Alexander.
No. I was in the middle of a story, and then that wasn't a great smooth transition. But they're all over the region.
We can laugh about it. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was good.
Can I read these off to you, just in case people didn't know? Buick, Ford, Mazda, GMC, Nissan, Chevrolet, Hyundai, Ram, Subaru, Jeep, Dodge, and that's not even all of them.
Yeah, they pretty much everything.
Everything.
Where you might have to go to, like I said, I bought a Mazda from them, and they're Mazda dealerships in State College. It's the one right down the hill from the field.
Okay.
And because that's why they're a huge sponsor now of Penn State athletics.
Yes.
And so I was like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for it's a dealership in State College, so they shuffle it in, and there you go, and there you go. Nice. So thank you to Blaze Alexander. I was going to say something before that.
You were going to tell a story.
Oh, Eddie Van Halen. We just missed the 2-year anniversary of his death.
Did we miss it?
What? I didn't. I saw it.
You missed it.
No, I saw it. I forgot to mention it to you because I knew you didn't see it.
Okay. Yes, I did not.
Eddie was a legend, and Eddie smoked all the time. That's why I thought of it too. Okay. He like the cigarette sticking at the end of his guitar while still lit. That was kind of Eddie.
That was his thing.
And yeah, just that was a sad day. That was a really sad day for people of my age and for like old white guys who listened to cassettes in the 80s. Like this was a sad day.
2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago, Tuesday or Wednesday. So anyway,
I have a weird, let's do like a Midday Show 1.7 veer off. I have a weird thing where I do not remember like the anniversary of deaths or passing aways has never been like a thing for me. Because I have people in
I agree with you.
I have people in my family and I have friends and just everywhere like 2 days before they're like, you can see like it's on their mind. And then like the day of, like, maybe I'm just like an asshole. Like maybe I'm just so oblivious in my own world that I just don't, but it's never been a thing for me.
The one I remember, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother died on my birthday.
Okay.
So I'll never forget that. Okay. But yes, other than that, I know my other grandmother died very close to her birthday. Mm-hmm. And because I can never remember if she just got there, she was just short. Yeah. But it was so no, I'm with you. But you know people who know the anniversary of the deaths, and it is a big day for them.
It makes me feel inefficient because I don't know any of the days of the important people.
I don't know if it's inefficient.
I don't know if it's certainly my own coping
it's certainly
mechanism.
Healthy.
I don't know if it's my own coping mechanism, but like I've always from day one I've been that way.
No, yeah. Unless, like I said, there's a reason you remember it. Yeah. I'm sure some people remember it was a Tuesday or it was a Sunday or it was, but I would have to believe it's healthier for people who don't because it's one less mental what word am I looking for? Strain. I mean, because there are some people that it's a miserable day for them every year, and that would suck.
Yes, brutal. I wanted to mention this to you. I heard about this yesterday, and the number, I didn't really think about a conversation around it, but the number is intriguing enough that I read it to you and you were surprised. I formed it as a question here on the show in case anybody wanted to guess. Which group currently holds almost $60 trillion of America's wealth? So you hear all these conversations about the 1%, the Bezos of the world, the Musks of the world, the Buffetts, but we always hear about generation gaps and how the boomers hate the millennials and the Gen Zs don't like the millennials and the millennials don't like anybody and all of this stuff. But I saw this number and it was really, really fascinating. Did you guess? I can't remember if you guessed or if I told you.
I think you told me.
Okay, I just told you. Boomers. So it's people aged between 59 and 75.
Okay.
Currently holds $60 trillion of America's wealth. Now, to put that number, because that just saying that
You
out loud,
can't. It doesn't make
you
any
can't.
sense.
To put that into context, it is 1/7 of the world's wealth, the entire world. So boomers have 1/7 of the world's wealth. I'll say that one more time. Boomers have 1/7 of the world's wealth. It's actually more than all of the 1% combined. Not that it shouldn't be, but this idea that like the 1% is
Right.
And this is the other part too. And this is just me thinking out loud. Most 1%ers, you know what they do with their money? They spend it. Like they create jobs, they create companies. You don't think so? You don't think so? Think of it this way. When Elon Musk wants to build a rocket and go to the moon, like there's jobs, there's materials, like things are sold and bought.
Yeah, but I don't think the other people spend it
so?
like that.
You don't think so?
No.
What do you think they do with it?
I think they invest it.
And they don't buy anything.
Well, but there's a difference between when you buy a company.
You're shocking me with this. Go ahead.
When you buy a company, you're not spending it, you're investing it.
Correct. But here's the difference. When you invest it, you're not necessarily creating jobs. You're not necessarily moving materials. You're just putting money into buying a share and it just sits.
Okay.
The Musks and the Bezos and those types of people, like, let's go to the moon. Let's create Wirelink. Like, jobs are created. Things are being bought and sold. Like, stuff is happening. I would argue for a lot of the 1%, like whether it's Microsoft or Amazon or Tesla or whatever it may be, like at least within the economy, it's going in and out. Now, what comes back might be more than what went in. I agree with you.
Okay.
But at least it's shifting. And the people around it are like, whether you agree with Amazon benefits or not, there are jobs and buildings being created.
Don't you think boomers spend their money?
I don't know. I feel like most boomers, that's retirement. I feel like it's their
I would disagree with that.
You don't think so?
No, I think they spend it all the time.
Interesting. So the average boomer, and obviously this varies because not every boomer has this. So right now it's 1.2 million if you take every single boomer in America and divide that trillion down.
Well, and because you also have to keep in mind how many 1%ers are boomers, like Bezos.
Sure. So
he throws off the list a little bit. How old is Bill Gates? Is Bill Gates older than that? Or so those throw it off a little bit. But a lot of it's just in property.
I agree with that.
So
it was over almost 80% of boomers either own their house or some sort of property, which statistically, percentage-wise, is light years ahead of the two generations below them.
Correct.
So that's a part of it too. But 1/7 of the world's wealth. I guess this is what fascinated me. I don't know if I'm necessarily trying to say that it means like boomers are bad people or that like boomers don't deserve it. I think what I'm saying is like, I never would have imagined it was that much. If you would have told me boomer wealth makes up a 20th.
Well, yeah, I would have had no guess, but I would have never guessed that much either.
But to have almost, you're better at math than I am, but to have essentially like over 12% of the world's wealth just in American boomers is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we've talked about too, because of the way the world has changed and, back when most of labor was way more physical, then people retired.
Okay.
and people died off.
Yeah.
And we're talking about now how this older generation, just some of them aren't retiring.
Well, so this one article talks about how it's not the 60 trillion. Like the 60 trillion is the headline, and that's what gets people's attention. But within the article, the one guy was saying like the 60 trillion isn't the thing to talk about. The thing to talk about is the fact that this money isn't moving. Like that was his whole thing.
Well, that's why
like,
I'd say because most of it's
people,
in property.
And these people are living longer. These people, the longevity of life. So it's not getting passed down yet. So like previous generations, they didn't live as long. It gets passed down in the next generation. It kind of just keeps going. With this baby boomer generation, not only because there's so many of them, but then you add in the longevity of it all. Like some of these people are going to live to be like high 80s, like mid 90s. Like, so now it's just sitting there and there's no transition of the actual wealth itself.
No, I agree. I was thinking the other day, because it's so hard now for first-time home buyers.
Yes.
Because the costs are so much now, interest rates are up, and when you are in a competitive market, cash buyers win out over people who need mortgage, and first-time home buyers need mortgages.
Sure.
So, I was just thinking how many houses are just going to stay from generation to generation to generation.
I think it's happening. It's funny you say that. I have two people in my life. I have two people in my life right now that are taking their parents' house.
Right.
So no, I agree with you. I think it's happening. Here's a dumb debate. Jeff Bezos is 58. Depending on which you believe, boomers either start at age 57.
Oh, he might not be a boomer yet. Or
they start at age 59. But see, here's the thing. Like when you say yet, like there is no yet. Like you either are one or you aren't. Because the age
it'll keep moving. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
So depending on
that was stupid.
So depending on who you depending on which one you go with.
I was born in the 20th century, but next year it'll be the 21st century.
I'm gonna be
Nah, your birthday doesn't change.
Can't wait to be a boomer. Well, now I literally cannot wait to
now
be a
you
boomer.
can't wait to be a boomer.
How can I
they're
join
killing
the
it.
club? How do I get in? I'm gonna say something really nice about the Genetti quickly. The Genetti Hotel, it's located in the heart of Central PA, and it is home to the Little League World Series as well. Genetti Hotel and Suites is Weis Sports' premier hotel and conference center with banquet and meeting facilities to accommodate your seminars, conventions, business meetings, wedding receptions, and much, much more. Be sure to go to GenettiHotel.com for a chance for your overnight stay.
One of the things when we did the article about them for their 100th year is how many people had either gotten married there or been in a wedding there. Like I was in a wedding there. And just whether it was them or a relative or a friend or whatever, that it's hard to have lived in Lycoming County and not been in a wedding or at a wedding.
That's where my sister got married there.
Yep.
So
there you go. Were you invited to that?
I was invited to that. I was in it.
Wow.
I may or may not have fallen down the balcony stairs.
Did you really?
On my way. No one saw it, so no one knows if it happened.
So, hey,
people said they heard something, but if you didn't see it, did it really happen? I mean, that's
if a tree falls in the woods.
We skipped this yesterday, so we're bringing it back. Mark's minute of uninterruptedness. It is you said you may have two for me today. Okay, so
I'll do 30 seconds.
I'm gonna shut up. The floor is yours. Mark's minute of uninterruptedness.
I have two, so I'll do super quick. I did watch the first episode of House of the Dragon. Is that what it's called? Is it House of the Dragon?
That's true. To interrupt you.
And it was way better than I thought. The first one was free. It was like free on HBO. I'm not a subscriber to HBO Max, so now I'm gonna have to figure out how I can watch the other ones. I might have to subscribe, but I apologize for all the ridiculing I've done. You said it's good. You said it's way better, and I was like, "There's dragons in it." You're like, "There's barely dragons in it," and it's way better than I expected. So I will give you that. Secondly, the baseball playoffs start today. If you are a Phillies fan, if you're a Mets fan, it should be a fun day. I think Cleveland is already playing right. Cleveland and Tampa have already started. The Mets are the prime time. Phillies are at 2. Mets are prime time. It's a little bit. This is a fun baseball weekend, especially for the people in this area that are Yankees, Mets. The Mets are a great story because they won more games than the Yankees did, but they didn't win their division because of your Braves. And you would think that the sky is falling, that they're the worst team ever, but they actually won more games than the Yankees, who some people are picking as like a, real World Series contender. So anyway, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today is baseball's version of March Madness, because there's baseball at noon and it runs all day. So you can enjoy that while you're watching high school football night.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Let's move to the afterthoughts. What was your favorite thing about House of Dragon? What surprised
Well,
you?
I will say this.
What made the shift?
I told you this, and I'm 50.
Yes.
And there was a scene that I watched like this because it was, and the scene from the, I don't know, the first episode.
I know what you're talking about.
I'll tell you what I thought they did really well for the first episode was they had a lot to get in, character-wise, introduce people, and like get it going. And they covered in an hour. They covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
And it didn't seem rushed. It didn't seem hokey. It didn't, because that's one of the things that bothers me in shows when they're just out of nowhere, where someone's like Jeff Everett from Blossburg, and you're like, they needed to say that for something else,
right?
But nobody would talk like that.
Sure.
And I thought they got everything in very smoothly. I like the character tension and the dynamics, because you talked about, it's about family struggle, it's about political struggle, it's about power, it's about gender, it's about so many things.
Yes.
Stupid. It's about insecurities and trying to protect your insecurities, and in an hour, I thought they did really, really well.
One of the best critiques I've ever heard of the show is it's one of the only shows to ever assume that the audience is smart. And so many times in television, producers, directors, like you said, it's this idea of we can't put somebody on screen until they know who they are.
Right.
And Game of Thrones just kind of they go, you know what? Half the people have read the books. They're going to be able to figure it out. And then eventually everyone else will catch on. And so Game of Thrones is just willing to do things, whether it's introducing a structure, introducing a place, a person, a relationship, whatever it is, without having the
background set out for you.
Yes. And then you as the viewer, you might not actually know you might see somebody on the screen 3 or 4 times until you actually go, oh, that's so-and-so.
Correct.
And that is one of the most brilliant critiques of the show I've ever heard. And they're dead on. They're very intelligent to do that.
But it's not the only thing that ever assumed that the viewer was intelligent, like Porky's, for example.
Oh, really?
Yes. Have you seen Porky's?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's classic cinema
I have heard of Porky's
from the early '80s. Classic American cinema.
Yeah.
Yes.
Classic is a choice word.
Game of Thrones and Porky's, I think, are like.
So my challenge to you was the other day, about 90 hours total, if you include the first series of Game of Thrones and now the House of Dragons first season. And I said to you, if I were you, if you enjoyed that first one, I would not watch the second one. What I would do is I would backtrack and I would go back to the beginning. You said it's too much. However, I said to you, 90 hours, it's really 30 football games. You're telling me you're not going to watch 30 football games over the next 2 to 3 years?
And what did I say to you? I'm going to watch. So now I got to watch 30 football games and 90 hours.
But I think once you started watching this, you would realize, I'd rather watch this than football. I think that's what would happen.
Really?
Here's the other thing, too. Most people, when they go, do I want to invest this time? They don't know if it's good yet or not. 99% of people are sitting here telling you this is really good. It's not going to be a waste of time.
I get it. But if it's
right,
I can see in the present tense. I liked watching Stranger Things. And I liked watching because I watched it with my daughter. But other people were talking about. For me to go back and put in 90 hours to watch Game of Thrones, all that does is let me have conversations now with other people who watched Game of Thrones 10 years ago. And am I going to put in?
Love to talk about.
Am I going to put in 90 hours to be involved in a conversation?
Well, no, because you have the benefit of knowing you already think you're going to like this new series.
It's a lot of liking.
I'm just saying, but you disagree with me. Like, there is something on the end of this that is going to keep going that you're going to get to be a part of.
I will say the only reason I started it was because you said you can watch this one and not having watched the other one.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I can do 10 episodes. Because the Queen's Gambit, I think, was 6 or 8.
All right, let me do some Mark analogies here. Okay.
You won't be able to pull them off.
I won't be able to, but let me try. If you had, let's say you had never seen like the best movies. So I sat down.
Like Porky.
I sat down and I made a list of like 30 movies. And I was like, Mark, I was like, take your time. This is American cinema. These are the ones you want to watch. And it had all the classics on it. Would you not watch them?
Sure.
You wouldn't say to me like, boy, like I don't know if I have this much time over 5 years.
But it's 30 different stories. Don't you think it's?
Don't I think it's what?
There's a start. There's a finish. There's a. If the difference between movies is when somebody comes in and you walk in the room and you say, hey, have you seen, Pulp Fiction? And then you say, I haven't. And then everyone makes fun of you because you haven't, but everyone else has. And then you can go to this other one. Did you see this? Oh yeah, I just saw that. And so there's 30 different topics of conversations that you can have all over. Whereas this is just, did you see Game of Thrones or did you not?
I disagree because there's just one of the things, again, because there's so many good things about Game of Thrones and House of Dragons. There's so much going on. And so what I mean by that is there are entire episodes where you just don't see characters. Like they're just off somewhere else and you're ingrained in what's happening in this castle or at this war and then 3 or 4 episodes later, you have a completely different episode with those characters.
That's so people can go film other things.
Correct. That's very true. But it works in Game of Thrones because you start off basically with 8, 12 like plot points that as the seasons come down, those all start to get closer and closer. And then by the final seasons, they're starting to mesh a little bit and intertwine until now they're all here
But I would say something like this. Like my son is 16. He's a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So it would be like saying to him, hey, you know what you should do? You should go back and watch the 1980 Philadelphia Eagles season when they made it to the Super Bowl and lost to the Raiders.
Okay.
So now he's going to go back, and in 1980, were there 14-game season? So he's going to go watch 14 games and then 3 playoff games.
Yeah.
And then why? So he can talk to people who remember this a season from 40 years ago. Like you can be a good young modern Eagles fan now and not have seen a snap from 1980.
Okay.
So all it does is get me into a conversation. I mean, obviously in my brain I can think about it and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I think we watch these things so then we can talk about these things.
I don't know.
And people are done talking.
But I guess I disagree because if you're only doing it to talk to people, I can't relate to that. Like to me, it sounded like you enjoyed it. To me, it sounded like if you didn't talk to anybody, you would enjoy it. So to use that as like the crutch of like, well, I'm only doing this so I can talk to people. That seems like such a weird
I wouldn't say I'm only doing it so I can talk to people.
But that's the crutch you keep using.
Because it's 90 hours.
I know. It's so weird though how you view 90 hours. Maybe this is just like a 50-35 thing. You view 90 hours like it's so daunting. And what's weird though is if you and I sat down and made a list of like the things you're going to spend
90 hours I'm going to waste.
If you like over the span of, because again, no one's saying you have to watch it all this month. You can take 5 years to watch this thing.
Yeah, but what?
So
if you and I
sat down,
we'll have a whole new generation of dragons in 5 years.
If you and I sat down and from age 50 to 55 and we wrote down all the things you're going to waste spending 90 hours on, it would be absurd that like that is your thing. Now, here's the funny part. If you just looked at me and were like, I don't want to do it, I'd shut up. Like if you were like, I don't enjoy it, I didn't like it, I don't want to do it, I'd be like, yeah, don't waste 90 hours doing that.
No, I did like the first episode.
Exactly. So I'm telling you, it's worth it.
It was way, way better than I thought. This is what I thought it'd be good.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be more hokey than it was.
No, it's the best.
It was. That was what you were like. No, it's really good.
Yes.
It's really good.
And I don't even necessarily like agree with all of their like decisions. Like, there's some stuff that's wonky at the end of Game of Thrones, and even this first season for House of Dragons has been like, there's been some stuff where I'm kind of like, but it's still the best that anybody has done at like actually making large scale television where like it matters kind of what's happening. No one has done it better than this.
See, I think you should take 2 hours out of your life and go back and watch Porky's.
I'll do that. If you start Game of Thrones from the beginning, I'll go watch
Oh,
Porky's.
that's a fair deal.
Listen, this is the deal, because then we do have to go because we have a meeting. This is the deal that I will make with you. I will let you make a list of 30 movies that I have never seen. And it will include Pulp Fiction. It will include Porky's.
You don't know what it'll include.
It will include
the
fish of what's my DVD I have? I have the DVD that you apparently care so much about. You've forgotten about it already.
Oh, the GOAT. Rebound. The Legend of
I have Rebound. Rebound will be on there. I will let you make a list.
I loaned Jeff a movie like 3 years ago. He hasn't watched it. He won't give it back.
The point is, I will let you make a list of 90 hours worth of viewing.
You lost it.
Sometimes it's like 90 hours of viewing.
I'm not taking that deal.
Okay, well,
that's so much. It's so much of a commitment.
It's not
because you just get into it.
Mark, you're acting like you got to watch 90 hours by Friday. Like, no one's saying that. No one's saying that.
I'm just thinking, like, if I watch it after a while, you'd want to slit your wrists, I would think.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. And thank you to Weis Markets for being our title sponsor. Be sure to sign up for Weis Rewards, grocery, gas, and now Thanksgiving. See if you can earn that turkey for Thanksgiving Day. Anything else before we go? Make it quick.
No, enjoy your Friday night lights and enjoy your baseball. Penn State's off this weekend, so you kind of enjoy it as the calm before the storm.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.